Hello, my name is Tisha Townsend and I'm an advisor with TRIO Student Support Services. Today I'm going to talk to you about applying for grad school. Applying for grad school is a really big decision. There's a lot of things to take into consideration. There's a lot of materials that you will need to gather for your application. So when you first begin looking into it, it can seem like a very overwhelming process. It is a big decision. It is a little bit overwhelming, but if you take it step by step, it's not as intimidating. There are a lot of steps involved, but there are also a lot of people who you can turn to for advice and guidance that can help you decide what is best for you, what is the best program for you, and having these people to talk to and in your corner can make the process a little bit less stressful. When you begin looking at grad schools, something to take into consideration is what your interests are. It's important to decide if getting a master's degree is going to further your career. There are some professions that getting a master's degree isn't really going to make a big difference. It's not going to help you make more money, but there are a lot of professions that do require a master's degree. When you begin exploring different programs, talk to professors, talk to advisors, and any other professionals in the industry that you are interested in pursuing. This can help give you some insights on how different people went about pursuing their education and their career. When I was looking into applying for grad schools, I talked to probably 7 different people in the industry that I eventually ended up in. And I found that they all had very different educational backgrounds. They had taken very different career paths to get to where they were by the time that I spoke to them. And this was really helpful to me because it made me realize that there isn't just one way to go about pursuing your education, to go about pursuing your degree, your career. So that was something that was hugely helpful to me. So I recommend talking to as many people as you can, just to get a little bit of advice, to get some guidance. It kind of helps clear up the process a little bit too, and makes it seem a little bit less stressful and less intimidating as well. Another thing that is helpful is talking to past and present alumni from the schools that you are interested in applying to. If you ever go to any of the graduate school visits that we go on with TRIO, a lot of the universities that we visit will have past and present alumni for you to talk to, which can be really helpful because again, it shows you that there's many different ways that you can go about getting your education and pursuing your career. And then talking to these, particularly with current alumni, can give you a little bit of insight about what campus life is like at that particular university. So that can be really helpful. Some other tips that are really helpful, if you are able to, I highly recommend visiting the schools that you're interested in attending, because this can give you some insight to what campus is like, what classes are like, what the professors and advisors are like. If you are interested in some universities that are out of state and you are unable to visit them, you might be able to set up a Skype call with somebody on the university. Usually when you go on the website and you request information, sometimes they will have people call you, and particularly if you are out of state, they might be interested in having a phone conversation with you. And a phone conversation sometimes will be enough for you, but if you like a little more person-to-person interaction, or might be willing to set up a Skype visit with you. Like I said, going on graduate school visits can be helpful with TRIO. Oftentimes, schools will have group tours. You can schedule an individual tour with them, and that is something that can be really helpful in the decision-making process. I recommend also getting on the mailing list of schools that you are interested in attending. They often have speakers, different professionals, writers, researchers, different, say if there's a law school, they might have somebody who's a famous legislator or person involved in politics speak at that particular university, and these can just be interesting things to go to, but great networking events too, because you'll meet a lot of people who work and go to school there. So that can also give you some insight onto campus life at that particular university. Your professors and advisors can sometimes refer you to people in the industry that you are interested in pursuing. So I highly recommend talking to them about this. The more people that you talk to, the more insight you will get into what kind of path is best for you. So just make sure that you are taking advantage of the connections that you already have to build the connections that you would like to have, and that will be helpful to you. Aside from the part about deciding which graduate program is best for you, the application process is very time consuming. So one of the most important things to account for is time. Everything takes time. All the materials that you will need to get together for your application will be very time consuming. Deciding which program is going to be best for you can be time consuming. Organizing time to visit these grad schools that you're interested in attending can take a lot of time. So just make sure to allow yourself at least 6 months, but probably more like a year, to decide which school you want to go to, make all your visits, get all your materials together. It's just really important. I can't stress enough the importance of not doing this last minute, not doing this last month. Don't give yourself a month or a few weeks to get this stuff together, because that's more pressure to put yourself under than you need to. And if you just give yourself plenty of time, it's a little bit less stressful. Another important thing to know is your deadlines. Each grad school, if you're interested in multiple grad schools, they're all going to have different deadlines for the application. So these are very important to know, because if you miss your deadline, you will have to wait for the next semester to apply. So you will have to go through the entire process of getting all these materials together. You'll just have to wait to do that. And why do twice the work if you just are aware of your deadlines? Put them on your calendar and just make sure you know what kind of a timeline you're working with. Become familiar with the application. Most applications are fairly similar. They require pretty much the same types of materials. But just make sure that when you have narrowed it down to one or the handful of grad schools that you want to apply to, be familiar with the actual application. Something that also requires a lot of time is the references. You will need to ask your employers, your professors, maybe an advisor for a reference. And usually how it works is on the application, you will list the name and the email, the contact information of the individual providing your reference. The university will then email them a link to submit the reference to them. So make sure to allow plenty of time for that. You also don't know how busy people are, especially if we're talking about advisors and professors that might be providing references for you. They're very busy. Allowing them a week only isn't exactly polite and it's not fair. I had one of my references take about a month before she was able to, get it very well written, I might add. But she was super busy. My professor was super busy, and it just took her, a little bit to get to the reference. You will also need to provide a professional and a personal statement. This is basically who you are on paper in about 2 to 3 pages usually, and that can be kind of tough to really show the university that you're applying to who you are, your values, why you have chosen them as your preferred university, why you have chosen that particular program. They might ask. So just make sure to allow yourself plenty of time to get this very well constructed. Have plenty of people look at it, have professors look at it, have advisors look at it, anybody else you might know who may have been through this process themselves or have experience writing professional and personal statements. The more eyes that you have on it, the better, because you want to make sure to turn in the best statement possible, because it is essentially, like I said, who you are on paper. You will also need to turn in a resume. It will probably focus more on your educational background, but it will also have your work experience. If you've ever had to fill out or turn in a resume with a job application, it's pretty much the same thing, set up the same way. And this is another thing that you would want to have multiple sets of eyes on, just to make sure that you are turning in the best representation of yourself. You will also need to turn in transcripts from all the institutions that you have attended. Now, you will have to pay for your transcripts to be sent to the university that you are applying to. So if you're applying to multiple institutions, you will need to, you might have to pay for multiple sets of transcripts. So that's a financial consideration. And also some of them will only send them through the mail, and some of them will send them electronically. So just make sure that you are giving yourself and the institutions plenty of time to get these transcripts to the grad school that you're applying for. You will also need to pay an application fee. Application fees usually run between $50 and $85. I don't know if they're any more than that usually, but if you are applying to multiple institutions, that's something to perhaps plan for, because that can get expensive. I think one application is of like $65, I believe is what I paid for mine. I thought that was pretty expensive. So just make sure that you are prepared for that. You will also need to have a FAFSA filled out. And when you are looking into which program you are going to be applying for, they will have information about financial aid and paying for your degree. You can get financial aid for your master's degree. I know some people think that you have to pay out of pocket for your master's degree. That's not true. You can get financial aid. I believe the limit for financial aid for your graduate degree is $138,000. If I'm not mistaken, your lifetime. So just be aware that while we're not making the big bucks yet, once you get your master's degree, you'll be able to pay off those financial aid loans. Just to kind of recap some things that you will need to allow yourself plenty of time to get all the materials together for your application and to research and think about and decide which programs you're interested in applying for. And just plenty of time to get all those personal statements, professional statements, references, resume, and transcripts together. And know your deadlines. Like I said, if you miss your deadline, you miss your chance for that semester anyways to attend a particular university. So just make sure that you're aware of your deadlines and that you don't miss them. You may also have to take the GRE or the GMAT. You can meet with an advisor to prepare for that. At TRIO, we actually have the books for preparing for the GMAT and the GRE. So you can come into our offices to check those out. They might also have copies of them in the library. You can take a pre-test to know what to expect and to know what you need to study, which I highly recommend, because particularly on the GRE, there's some very complicated stuff on there, lots of vocabulary that, you know, the general public just doesn't use, lots of math, lots of critical thinking that, you know, it doesn't hurt to brush up on at all. And you can take pre-tests as many times as you need to. You can probably also retake the GRE or the GMAT, but something that you have to take into consideration is that you have to pay for it each time that you take it. And that can get expensive. So you want to be prepared the first time, and so that way hopefully you won't have to retake it. Not that there's anything wrong with retaking it, but it just can get expensive. So the better prepared you are, the better. So as far as taking the GRE or the GMAT, Metro actually has a form called the Financial Aid Release Form, where they will reimburse you your testing fees. But I think they only reimburse you for one set. So hopefully you only need to take it once, but this could also come in handy if you had to take it multiple times. You can at least get reimbursed for one of the tests that you took. And then you also need to allow sufficient time for the test scores to reach the schools that you are applying for. So these scores, the GMAT and the GRE, whatever test that you have to take to get into the university that you are applying for, these test scores need to reach the institution before the deadline, before the application deadline. So just make sure to be aware of that. Finally, we are done. The next thing that you have to do is take the test. The password for the test is grad school. I wish you luck. If you are actually interested in applying for grad school, I love talking about grad school. Come see me. Anybody really in our office, any of our advisors would be happy to help you. And just let us know if there's anything that we can help you with during this process. Thanks so much and have a good day.